Ce grand amour qui vient d'Asie. Je suis nue si fragile, le corps qui tremble comme une petite.
Welcome back. Before moving on to our next panel, please let me draw your attention to MCC Press, the publishing house of Matthias Corvinus Collegium. Our books are available for purchase online, as well as in the shop just next to us. In the next discussion, our panelists will focus on the gendermania in the German media. It is my honor to introduce our moderator, Dr. Bence Bauer, Director of the German-Hungarian Institute for European Cooperation. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So I would like to introduce our speaker. I'm delighted that she visited us here in Hungary, Mrs. Birgit Kelle. Birgit Kelle was born in Heltau, Transylvania, in Romania, but she's of German descent, of German origin. She's a German. Currently, she's working as a columnist and author for different newspapers and magazines in Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. She's a well-known expert from the media and TV shows and author of different best-selling books about feminism, gender critics, and motherhood. Da macht doch die Bluse zu, 2013, Gender Gaga 2015, Muttertier 2017, Noch normal, das lässt sich gendern 2020 are her recent publications. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we will be also delighted to present one of the books of Birgit Kelle in Hungarian language through our publisher MCC Press to the Hungarian audience. Birgit Kelle was also a contributor to several other books with topics like family and gender politics. She's member of the Christian Democratic Union of Germany, the CDU, and she's mother of 4, and currently president of the German women's NGO, Frau 2000+, lobbying for new feminism, respecting motherhood and the dignity of life. Without further ado, we will just start the discussion, and I have prepared some questions for Mrs. Kelle, but I really encourage you to also ask your questions. Mrs. Kelle, before we start, what is your impression being here in Hungary today? What is your impression of this conference? How did you come to us?
Can you hear me? Yes. Yes. So at first, thank you very much for inviting me, because it's really a beautiful town, and I really like to come back also. And my first impression is you have so many beautiful young ladies over here. I don't know how you do this, but this really is impressing. So, and I'm very glad that to be invited also here on this colleague, because I think what you are doing here with this work is very important, and is something that we miss in Germany, because we speak now for 2 days about media and how media is going on, and what we lack is young professional academics in media which are not lefts or greens. And this is a big problem also in, I think you don't have this problem so hard in Hungary. Also, you will have, I think this is a problem in every country, because it's just the social, the structure of people going into media. So if you take a look, who wants to be a journalist, then you have the same problem in the whole world. You don't have the conservatives who go to media. You know, they take they are studying medicine and law, and so something serious, and only the activists get journalists. So we have just this problem that we don't have enough liberal and conservative young people going to media. So this is why I think it is very good what you're doing here, just to teach young students how to be journalists and how to speak out openly in public.
Thank you. I would like directly to start the debate, and I just would like to underline how important it is that we shape the future ourselves, because we should not others shape the future, but we should shape a future ourselves. I think this is of utmost importance. So what we are doing here, to bring together all these think tanks, to bring together all the media outlets, to bring together all these thinkers from around the globe, serves the purpose to also train and educate our youngsters here in Hungary. So I think due to the respected people like Birgit Kelle, we can also learn. But I have a question to you, Mrs. Kelle. While the debate regarding the political, social, and cultural position of the gender question is with us for many years now, the exact nature and points of focus on these discussions are not so known so clearly. How would you define the current mainstream narrative in Germany about the talking in the press and how to express yourself? Is there a certain narrative, or can we overcome this narrative? What is happening with the German media?
Oh, wow. What is happening at the moment, and I think this started maybe to get stronger after 2015, so when the migration crisis started in Germany. From that point on, I think it got stronger that we no longer have journalists but more activists. So the difference between just doing your job or doing or speaking about what your personal meaning is at the moment the same. So we have more and more journalists in Germany who don't want to be journalists, but who define themselves as activists, and they don't see a problem in this. So what we see is that we have two things not coming together. So we have a public opinion and we have a published opinion, and this is not the same. And as a result, in Germany, we now have a real trust problem for journalists. So people don't trust journalists anymore, and this is so they don't believe, because it started with the migration crisis, where we had this big difference. You know, in journalism. We always talked about young families, women and children coming to Germany as refugees, and people just took a look out of the streets and saw only young men. But media was full of, oh, they are coming only women and children. So people are realized they are not told the whole truth. And this started about 6 years ago, and now it's you know, this not trusting journalism anymore, that they tell you the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth. This is a big problem, and the activism of journalists is now hopping on every topic. So, and on the gender topic, it is very strong, because we have here also, because most journalists, we have some polls made from universities how German journalists would vote if there were elections tomorrow. And as a result, already 10 years ago, we had, as a result, if you ask all German journalists, then the Green Party would get a majority on its own. A second strong were the socialists. And the Christian Democrats and the Liberals together got only 18%. So, and we have a second number. So if you take a look at the trainees at the moment in the public TV and radio stations, they made a poll on their own and asked only the young generation in the public broadcasting system, and they would vote, over 90% would vote Green. So this is the next generation of German journalists. They all vote for the Greens. So this explains a little bit, you know, what kind of people are now becoming journalists, and the Green parties and the left are those parties who who especially emphasize on all those topics like gender, LGBT rights, but also to be anti-racial, to be feminist, and stuff like this. So we have now entering a young generation of journalists who bring those topics very strong into German media. And as an example also, we had now elections in September, and in the election, in the month before the election, the public broadcasting system launched over 200 social media accounts for their youth programs, and they made special programs just for the young voters. And this was officially from the public broadcasting system. So they go to Facebook, they go to Instagram, and they make especially programs on topics for gender. So and for LGBT rights, for trans rights. So they only cover such stories, especially those stories. So we have a big focus on this topic, gender, which is also, you know, the normal people living in Germany, they are not interested in those topics. But here also we have this public and the published opinion.
This is very interesting what you say. Just recently we had one of the research directors of the Allensbach Institute here in this building, and he told us, he gave us figures, 80% of Germans don't agree to use this gender language like the media is using it.
We have different, it's not only Allensbach, but every radio station and every TV station and every newspaper made her own poll about what do you think about gender politics, and especially we have now a very hard discussion on using gender language. So because the German language is much more open for stuff like this. You know, I know that the Hungarian language, just with its grammar, has not the same opportunities to gender. But in German language, they are going mad at the moment. And they are going so mad that gender language is now used in media. So it's used in newspapers. They write with this so-called gender star. So we put a star just between into a word. So, and this should make visible all genders or sexual orientations and identities. So, and not only newspapers write this gender star, but also especially and also in the public in the public broadcasting systems, the moderators, the speakers in news channels, also in political talk shows, they really use the gender star when they speak. Yeah. This means that they make a pause within a word to emphasize and then go on with speaking. So this sounds really mad, especially when in the radio stations they had a lot of listeners calling at the stations. You know, is something wrong with your program? Because there are always gaps in between.
There's truly something wrong.
So people don't understand this, but we don't have this only in media, because we also. And this is how you can see that this is emphasized also by state politics, because we have different official agencies of the government also using gender language. Also, there was no debate somewhere. They just do it. They use it. Even in schools, in universities, it's used. So now everybody is confronted with this gender language. You know, I talked about gender language and what is coming up for 10 years now. And 10 years ago, everybody told me, oh, this will never happen. You know, this is so weird. Nobody would do this. And now, 10 years after, you can see it on TV station at 8 o'clock in the main news show. So people now realize in Germany that they can't go on like this. Needs now a decision. So this is why we have hard discussions now, and why we now do this discussion we should have done before. and then decide if you want to use this or not. And now we see nobody wants it, but at the moment they still do it anyway. In media, in university, and nowadays also in some churches already. So they also gender God with a star, you know, because we don't know which gender God has. Maybe he's not God Father, but God Mother, or maybe he has a fancy sexual orientation.
Hopefully not. But looking on these questions which are described to us, for us it looks, from a Hungarian standpoint, this looks like some utopia, or I don't know what. We have an MCC student. He went to Germany to study, and he was joining the student politics and the conservative student movement. And he campaigned in the student election saying, "Oh, this gender language, this is discriminatory towards the foreigners, because we learn proper German in school. So please, dear Germans, use your proper German like we learn it in school in Hungary, in Poland, in Slovakia, or in other countries."
Yes, but you have to realize also it is discriminating not only people trying to learn Germany, so foreigners coming to our country, but it also discriminates against people who are not so good in learning, and it discriminates elder people. They just don't understand what this is with those gaps and those stars, and so they just don't know. It also discriminates disabled people who have blind people, for example. So they just don't get along. And the problem is, it also to speak gender language, you break the grammar rules. Yes. So they break grammar rules, so it's just not logical anymore. So and the German language is not easy to learn, and it has a very clear grammar structure. And now they break the grammar structure for making gender identities visible. But there's also another sort of gendering language, and this is more a censorship of because they not only gender in the way that they put stars into the language, but they also say there exist some words should not be used anymore at all. You know, because they are sexist, they are racist, or so. So, for example, how I don't know how you call in Hungary black people.
Black people.
Yeah. So it changes, I think, every month. Which correct version you should now mention? At the moment in Germany, the correct spelling is that you speak from pox.
Pox.
You know, yes, people of color. This is so in short. This is now at the moment, I think worldwide, at the moment the official description of black people. But you also have to differ now, because also people of color are from different color. So, but don't say colored people, because this is racist. So it's people of color, but you have also APOCs, for example, or BPOCs. This means black people of color or Asian people of color. But I think you should not learn this, because I think in half a year we have another word. Which is political correct. So this changes now. But it's to gender language is also to delete words from using. And I may tell you this. I am at the moment fighting two trials in court, one against Facebook and one against Twitter. I'm doing this all the time. Because they sometimes delete my postings, or they shut down for 24 hours my account, and we are always successful until now. And at the moment, I'm on a trial against Facebook now in the third instance. Because they deleted the posting as discriminating and as hate speech. And the reason was I was using the word gypsy to talk about gypsies. And they argue, they seriously argue in front of a German court that the using of the word gypsy is always discriminating, no matter in which context you use it. So don't use this word, because then we delete your account. So, and this is gender too, you know? Not only putting fancy stars within words and stuff like this, but it is also, it is censorship of special words.
It is very true what you say. Some years ago, I had a meeting with German politicians who visited the self-government of the German gypsies, Hungarian gypsies, Hungarian Roma. And they asked the question, now, are you calling yourself gypsy or Roma? I said, you know, we are gypsies and we are very proud of that.
Yeah.
But, you know, we send all applications to Brussels and made tenders, and they all send us back. They wrote, you have to write Roma, because you are not gypsies. But we are gypsies.
In Germany, you have to say Sinti and Roma,
Yes.
but we have the problem. Some of them are not Sinti and not Roma, and some of them, and I explained actually in this posting, which was deleted, and I got back then, that I said, so please, just can we talk German? And by the way, I'm coming from Transylvania, and in Transylvania we called them gypsies for one reason, because they told themselves, as they described themselves as gypsies. Yes. So this is a normal word. This was deleted because this is racism. So this is what I mean, you know, and we have this with several words, and we see now at the moment we have a big problem rising, and I think this will come also to Hungary, those discussions, because we see several attempts in all Western countries to make hate speech laws. And those hate speech laws are used for this censorship, to delete words, to delete special opinions and stuff like this. So everybody who is talking, for example, against LGBT rights, this is homophobia, this is transphobia. Other tweets, also what is a great reason for being deleted in social media is if you speak against Islam, to be Islamophobic. So everything is phobic at the moment. So every time you have a second opinion on a topic, then you are phobic in this context.
Very interesting what you say, and I really encourage the public to ask questions. We already reached, some questions already came in. The Slido event code is 910733, if you couldn't have the chance to read it, 910733. First question came in on Slido. Which social institutions are outstanding in their opposition to this gender theory in Germany? Are there some?
Opposition?
Opposition against this genderism.
No one.
Theory. No one.
That's the problem. No, we have really, it's a big problem at the moment that the resistance against this all is just starting at the moment, because we have, and I think this is a problem also in a lot of Western countries, that the liberals and the conservatives did just not realize for 20 years that there is a movement on his way through all the institutions, through the parliaments, but also through NGOs, through churches. We have the Lutheran Church in Germany is completely gendered, you know? So the Catholic Church still holds on. So this may be in institutions. But we have the problem, for example, you know, you mentioned I am part of the Christian Democratic Union, but I'm just only member, so I don't have a mandate or something like this, never have. But I'm speaking a lot within the party. I held a lot of speeches. I talked to a lot of politicians in the last 10 years on this topic, just to warn them, to tell them, you know, watch what is going on here, what is going in here, what are the Greens and the lefts doing already in parliament. So you have to react, you have to do something. They did just not see the problem for years. So they did not react on this. They did not make a strategy to fight against this. You know, we were in power now for 16 years, and everybody thought this will go on forever, and this is okay, and we have it in power. And now they realize, no, we are not. They just did not see the problem. They thought, no, this will never happen. So, and now it is happening, and they are now now we start, but it's late to fight against this, and most politicians are the first time in their life now realizing, okay, so we have to react. We have to have an opinion on gender language, on gender in school, on gender in universities. So now the debate is going on. We have also a little bit what is rising now at the moment is the conservative, we have the RCDS. This is a conservative students organization link, so it's very near the Christian Democratic Party. So the conservative students at the universities are at the moment organizing themselves very strong against gender at universities, because especially on universities we have the problem that that some universities force their students to write their everything in gendered language, and if you don't do, you get wie sagt man, Punktabzug?
Less points.
Less points. So you get less points if you don't use gender language. There's no law which can force you to do this, but if your professor comes and says, you write now in gender language or I give you less points, what are you doing? What would you do? Would you stand up and say no and risk to get lower points? This is what you should do all if ever a professor comes to you. But we have the problem at the universities that most students, they just did not know what to do, you know. They are at university to learn and not to go to war. So they now organize and fight against it, but also this is happening now for 5 or 6 years, and now they organize. They did not organize 5 years ago, but now they started. So, and we have from the, if you take a look at the political parties in Germany, we have only one party going strong against it from the beginning. This is the AfD, alternative for Germany, but this is a very, very right-wing party, so nobody listens to them. And we saw now in this election campaign we just had in September this year, and this was the first election campaign where the Christian Democratic Party the first time mentioned gender language and fighting against gender language as a topic in the election campaign. So they at least realized the problem and now saw that they have public behind them, that this is a good topic to go in election campaigns. It comes 10 years too late, but it comes.
I remember Friedrich Merz speaking out against this,
Friedrich
and he was
Merz,
heavily attacked.
Yes. So we don't have the whole party together going against gender language, but we have some MDBs fighting. We have also some ministries who made decisions. For example, in Schleswig-Holstein and in Saxony, the education ministry for schools, they made statements that they said in our country it is forbidden in schools. So they make it so in schools it is not used, but universities still are. So, but it is, you know, they start. We have some now, so I hope this will grow because they see that people agree with this, that the people in Germany just don't want this. They don't want this politics. They don't want, especially not the gender language. It took very long for the conservative politicians to realize this.
We got new questions in. One of those is as follows. Do you agree with this gender movement to a certain degree, or you oppose it completely?
You know, there is a reason for this movement, and we have to respect this. Yes, I agree a little bit, as long, you know, we have in every society, we have a majority and we have different minorities. And I think in every democratic and liberal state, we have to respect minorities too. So yes, to a certain degree, I totally understand, and I also support that they say we want to be normal part of your society. We want respect for who we are and how we want to live. But what we did not discuss, it stops for me when a minority comes and says, you as a majority now, you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to change your language, you have to change your opinions. So this is no longer democracy. So there it stops. So and we have the problem I see is that we at the moment we just do not manage to even discuss in the normal way on those topics because there's so much rage against each other. There's so much aggression. And this aggression is not coming from the majority, but the aggression is coming from the minorities. And this is a great problem. When we see the LGBT lobby, every time you speak up, for example, I'm sometimes in TV shows in Germany, and I was one of the very few conservative journalists, for example, speaking up against gay marriage. You know, they wanted to burn me as a Hexe. What is a Hexe?
A witch.
As a witch. Afterwards, and I was called, you know, I went through whole media, I'm such a homophobic person, you know, I just defended the law as it was, and this made me a witch in public. So, and this is what I mean, and at the moment, the most aggressive part of the LGBT scene is the trans movement at the moment. They do not accept at all another opinion, you know? And this is the point where I just don't go on anymore because this is not democracy. This is not the liberal, you talk about tolerance, you talk about respect, but you know, this is not a one-way street. Respect goes in both directions. So if you want respect from me, please respect that I have my opinion too. I have my beliefs, I have my faith, you know, I have an opinion on what I define as a marriage. But of course, I can respect if there are two gay people saying, you know, you don't give me your marriage, but we need something, you know, we want to take care for each other, we need the opportunity to make a civil contract. And this we had already. You have it too in Hungary, so this is okay, because we have to discuss as a society also that, you know, maybe this civil contract can also mean more than two people. It maybe can mean 3 people too, but this has nothing to do with marriage, what we define as a marriage. Yes. So, and this is where, you know, or also where I stop, where I don't go further, is when it comes to children, you know? Because it is one thing that two grown-ups say we want to stay together for the rest of our life. And no matter if it is 2 men or 2 women, you know, this is not a thing of my business. But if they claim that they had the right to have children, this is, for example, again, a point where I don't go with them. Because I say, no, for me, a child naturally has a mother and a father. And I think there is a higher sense in this. So I think it is not good if a child lacks a father or lacks a mother. And yes, we have children growing up without a father or without a mother, but this is not an ideal we follow. This is always, you know, even people living like this don't tell this is an ideal. So it's just life as it happens, and we have to manage this. But if we make politics, if we make laws, then we have to think at that point. It's just not, the thing is not what 2 grown-ups want, but what is the best for the child.
Now coming to children, we have the next question just dealing with this topic. Do you think, I quote, do you think that it is possible that they will introduce a gender-neutral language in the teaching system in schools?
That it is possible to
Yeah, there are some plans from some political forces to introduce.
Yes, the plans are already there. We have some, for example, in Baden-Württemberg, in the south, we already have this in the plans that all children in Baden-Württemberg should know gender language. They did not define what kind of gender language and especially they mean, but it is already in the plans within. And we see that that in the whole educational area, also in universities, they teach it now as a truth to teachers that it is important to raise children gender neutral. We have already materials for kindergartens to teach children sexual diversity in kindergarten. It's very important that a 3-year-old child knows gender diversity. So we already have the attempts. The good thing is that there is at the moment, there is no law that this should always be done, but it can be done. So it depends on which party in this region is strong, and at the moment, so the teachers can confront their children in school with it, but teachers are not forced to do this. So it is not law. You have to teach it like this. But we see that it is for 10 years now. They are marching into into schools, into kindergartens, and into universities. So to bring it soft and to the children. Yes.
A lot of questions coming in again. I can remind you about the code 910733 on Slido if you have questions. But there are coming more and more questions. For example, what is Angela Merkel's position on the gender language?
Oh, wow, you know. If we really know what Angela Merkel wants in every topic, it would be helpful. She never said a word to gender language, but this is not a surprise because to several political topics she does not say anything. So she always has her people. You can judge her about what she does not stop. You know, this is more Angela Merkel's style was always, so you could see where she stands, because if she did not like something, then she stopped it. And she never stopped the gender agenda, never.
So is it.
So, and she, even more, she installed Ursula von der Leyen, for example, was before she became this very successful EU Commissioner President. She was family minister in Germany, and when she was there, she invented gender study. She made a whole an Abteilung, what means Abteilung?
Department.
A whole department in her ministry for gender mainstreaming. So, and she put tax money for different gender, for universities. So Ursula von der Leyen, which is very close to Angela Merkel, always supported gender mainstreaming, and Angela Merkel did not say no. So this is Angela Merkel. You should judge on what is going on in Germany. She agrees, and if it's stopped, then she disagrees. But she does not. In her whole chancellor, when she was chancellor, she did not only on few topics she really stood up and told it openly where she stands.
We have the next question.
Yes.
Gender language is used for addressing women's rights as well. Should it be differentiated in the use of the language when addressing women issues separately from LGBTQ rights? So the question is that women should be addressed another way than the LGBTQ community.
Yes, the problem at the moment is that everything is put together. That the LGBT movement at the moment says, you know, we are fighting for every minority and also for women. So they do not differ between women's rights and LGBT rights. So if you are a feminist, you have to be also for the LGBT rights. And the problem is that, it differs, and sometimes it also goes against each other. But in the feminist movement, at the moment, they stay at the moment close. But it's getting hard at the moment, because we see that there are some fights within the feministic movement about this point, because especially trans rights, so the T within LGBT, is getting the biggest problem of the feminist movement. And we have this war against each other very open in the Anglo-Saxon countries, for example in England, where this is a real fight about this, because especially the elder feminists realized that LGBT rights sometimes are against women's rights. Yeah. So, you have to realize the gender definition is a self-identification of gender. So if you follow up the gender ideology, then you define yourself which gender you have, no matter what your biology says. So from this point of view, everybody can be a woman. So what is the feminist movement fighting? Who is a feminist movement fighting for if they don't define femininity? So they say everybody can be a woman and we fight for women. And now we see in the trans movement that biological men come and claim to be women. And for example, in England, we have a severe problem because this is already law in England. So in England, you can go to register as a man, you can go to register as a woman, and you get a new name and you get a new identity card. And then if you get criminal and go to prison, then you can claim, I'm a trans woman, and then you have the right to be brought to the women's prison as a trans woman. And now we have the first sexual harassments in women prisons, because it's the end of every safe space for women. If everybody can be a woman because just he's identifying as a woman, then every man can claim to get into a safe space for women. Every man can claim to make sports against women because he's now a woman too. So we have this, and we have a big problem in professional sports, because trans women are now doing sports together with biological women, and they win because they are men, and they have another body. So you see, in those only this just few examples, but this is getting a real problem, because if you once go away from the definition from biology, and everybody is just identifying as something, then you see that the biological woman is losing this fight.
This is really crazy. I can assure you, I'm a man. But now we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of questions coming in, and I'm really happy that we have such a living debate, a vivid debate. I prepared a bunch of questions, but obviously they are not needed because the auditorium is really interested to get in touch with you. And I think you can put your questions on Slido. You know the code now already, but you can also stand up and ask your questions in person, old-fashioned conservative way. But now we have a lot of questions. For example, where to start? Did the bigger companies introduce gender language already in their communication? For example, for product descriptions?
Yes, we see that every day. Every year there is this Pride Week. I don't know if you have Pride Week too in Hungary. It's around Christopher Street Day normally. So the LGBT lobby is making the whole week a party, and you see rainbow flags everywhere, and all is with this hashtag Pride. So we are proud that we are different from you. This means what we realize now, or what you can see in Germany, is that every year when we have Pride Week to celebrate the LGBT rights, then a lot of companies also flag with rainbow flags. They make special products with rainbow cover and stuff like this. But we also have now, for example, the automobile company Audi is forced all people working at Audi to use in the inner communication gender language. But there, one of those is now going to one worker is going to court now at the moment because he said, this is discriminating me. I want to use my mother language. But we have the first companies using in their inner company using gender star. This is becoming very common. We have a lot of NGOs using gender language because they feel very modern and very up to date. So it is getting more and more, yes.
There is the next question. How can journalists restore the trust that they lost? It's a complicated question, or a philosophical question.
No, it is not philosophical, it's practical.
Practical.
It is practical, you know, because yes, we have to restore the trust in journalism, and this goes only if you are working honestly, you know. So we have to work hard on really being trustful and saying the truth and nothing but the truth. You know, this is not philosophical because people just want it very practical. You know, if people read newspapers, then they want to have the feeling that they can trust in what is written there, and that not that they realize tomorrow that this is everything was wrong, or that they read another newspaper where it's totally different, and they realize you were lying to them. So very practical. Yes, we have to think as journalists what we are doing. You know, how to write. How to write also respectful, even on people you do not understand, you know. And we only can bring this trust back to journalism if we stand for something. And in my opinion, people also, you know, they want orientation, you know. So they want faces. They want you to have an opinion, but also stay with your opinion. So think twice before you write something and then not step back.
I look on the watch, 13 and a half minutes left, and the questions are coming like tsunami. We have 9 more questions. Okay. So, Mrs. Kelle, I think we have to make a limitation of time, like in the European Parliament.
I have time.
1 minute. So, question, European Parliament. Suppose the European Parliament says that everything is fine with LGBTQ. We have a few stipulations. Could the community pass the laws? I think this is a very technical question about...
I did not
really
understand quite...
The European Parliament says that LGBTQ is good. We have a few stipulations. Could the community pass the laws about LGBTQ?
But who is the European Parliament? Did you elect them? Me not. So this is just, you know, I think we should decide it their way it should be decided. So if you talk about gender language and the use of gender language, who could decide about this? I'm not sure if even a parliament could decide about this, because language does not belong to the state. You know, I think language in every, you know, we used to talk at each other as human beings long before we had a constitution or a state. So we have things like your personal faith, or the language you are talking with your mother. This is nothing that concerns the constitution or the state, you know. So I don't think that even a parliament, a national parliament, has the right to decide that people in this country should now talk like this and talk like this. And even more, a European parliament is just not to decide. They don't have the right. I think we should calm down a little bit, because we got so used, especially in Western part of Europe, people get used just to do what Brussels is asking for. But instead of looking twice also on the treaties, the European treaties, which just say this is something that concerns the European Union and this is not. And I think especially things like which language is used in a state, this is just nothing that concerns the European Parliament.
Do you see any chance for the new German government to convey a different image of gender through the press in future?
No, we are now becoming a green left parliament. So it is in Germany. It will get even worse because we have, I'm writing on those topics now for years, and so I know which we have different laws already in the pipeline, which could not be delivered to Parliament because of the Christian Democratic Party in the last years. But we have several laws, for example, a new transition law for transition from gender, so to become a trans woman or a trans man. The Green and the Liberals and the Socialists who are now talking, they will go in a coalition. All three of the parties have already their laws had in preparation, and they're only small things they differ in those topics. But so they will do. In Germany, I expect a new law which just goes like this: that you identify your gender. They also have other laws already in pipeline that will come with this new government. For example, they want to make a law that in the birth certificate of a child, it would be possible to write in two mothers but no father.
Oh.
So and they say this is gay rights, or because they say, if a child is in a gay marriage with two women, then those women should be the mothers of the child, and as there is no father, then in the birth certificate the father should be left away. And the only difference to the Liberal Party is the Liberal Party wants to put 4 people into the birth certificate of a child. So they say, yes, you are right, there are 2 women raising the child, so the 2 mothers should be in the birth certificate, but this child also has a biological father, so we should put the father also in the birth certificate. So they are debating about how many people you can put in the birth certificate of a child. Also, this child only has 1 mother and 1 father. So we have already laws like this in preparation, and I think everything will come. So it's getting worse the next years in Germany.
Oh my God. So next question was put in German, but I will read it out in English. What do you think about the opinion that was put forward about Hungary in the German press as regards to the Children's Protections Act from June 2021? So according, there was a Children's Protection Act.
Yes, we have a strong attention on Hungary on this stuff. So everybody hates Viktor Orban. So I think it's a good example to show how this nobody really respects these national laws anymore, because we are in Germany, we are so used really on this European level. So, everybody does it, so why does Hungary not? And as I said, most journalists are left and Greens, so they just disagree with this position you hold in Hungary, so this was not a surprise. that everybody was upset about those laws you made. Personally, I think you are totally right what you are doing, and you have the right to do this because making laws for what you want to teach your children in your national schools, this is nothing that should be commented in Germany or in Brussels. And this is for every country. It's like this, you know. But we already in the Western part are so used that we make everything with international standards. So we have a handful of experts making an international standards, and then they expect that every country just follows up and gives up their own national identity. So, and Hungary and Poland and a lot of the Eastern European countries, they still stand up. I think this is a very, very important signal you are also giving into the European Union to draw this red line and say, yeah, sorry, you can have another opinion, but we stay where we are.
What is your position, or what do you think about the position of the German churches in this gender question? You mentioned the churches in the beginning, and there came a question.
The German churches are divided in this point, so we can see from the different confessions that it differs very strong. As I mentioned already, the evangelical, the official, what is the Protestant church is already totally gendered, totally. You know, they have their own gender institute to make gender theology. You know, so this is the Protestant church in Germany. They are already totally lost on this. They baptize the gay marriage. The Catholic Church is still standing on this topic because in the Catholic Church this is not a national decision. So the Protestant Church in Germany decides on its own what is for Germany. The Catholic, yes, we all know, this is the worldwide church. So in Germany we could not decide on whether, for example, we baptize gay marriage or if we, but they try. There is a big movement also within the Catholic Church to bring LGBT rights into Catholic Church, but so there is still a fight, and it is harder for them to win this fight because we are connected to Rome. We cannot decide, but it's so this holds it a little bit away. But the attempts are very strong, and we have some communities where gender language is already used also within the Christian community and stuff like this. So Protestant is lost, Catholic still stands.
What kind of consequences will have these changes in gender language to the society as a whole?
I think, you know, I'm very hopeful, and I think this will. That we still will win this fight against gender language, because what we now see is that there is so much opposition against it from normal people, and people just do not want to use it. And we have now the first media broadcasting stations backing away from it. We have the first educational ministries going a step back. So we see already that they are losing their fight against to invent gender language as a standard, because people you can't force people to use another mother language. You can only do it with hard forcing them. So it only works there where somebody takes this power and people do not stand up. And we see now that more and more people stand up and they just don't use it. And what do you want to do if they just don't use it? So I think it will not, the gender language will not break through. So it will not have a lot of impact. At the moment, we have a hard discussion and it is very aggressive, but I think it will go away. It will not have much impact and it will not stay.
Thank you. We have 1 minute left. 4 more questions came in. I think we have to put now an end to the questions. So I think I will still give you these 4 questions.
Okay.
If you answer shortly, we will overstep the time a little bit. And I ask you for the audience not to ask questions anymore. We ran out of time. There's actually a comment, not a question. You said in Romania the Roma called themselves gypsies. Roma do not know what the word gypsy means. They are called gypsies by society, commentator says.
I experienced this in another way, and I sat in TV shows with people representing gypsies, saying for themselves, "We are not." I call myself gypsy. I think there are different tribes, you know, and there are even more tribes than Sinti and Roma. So to call them Sinti and Roma is also not correct because there are also different tribes. I think gypsies is just a word above, which means all of those tribes. And I don't think, and I think most people using this word is they don't mean it. They don't want to be racist. They just use it because they think this is right and this is the correct word. I don't know what to do finally in this debate because we have tribes who say I'm Gypsy, and we have some who say no, I am Roma, I am Sinti, I am whatever.
Are you against abortion? If yes, why? Long question.
Short question, long answer. No, yes, I am against abortion. I'm actually also in different NGOs in Germany, and I'm also writing a lot about those topics, and for years now. And I think that I just can't say that abortion is a women's right. So we have perverted this whole discussion already, because I think this is not a women's right, and this is not a success that we have as women now the right to murder our own children. You know, this is not a women's right, because the child has also a right to live. So I think we should, as a society, we should fight for a society where no woman thinks she cannot raise a child or feels helpless in this situation. I also do not want to criminalize those women, because I have a lot of experience now for 20 years with talking to women who had an abortion, writing about this, and I realized that a lot of women they made a very hard decision, and a lot of those women did not make this decision in a free situation. Because if you don't have the money, or if you don't have the support of the father, if your parents don't want you to get this child, you are not free as a woman to really decide freely. So what my experience is that a lot of women feel a lot of pain, even years later, about the fact what they had done, and they think a lot. Some have a real trauma about this thing. So I think we should not work on to make abortion a women's right, because I think this is perverse to call it a right to kill another human being. But we should work on a society, and we are free and very wealthy societies. So no woman should be forced or should feel forced, or should feel alone in a situation like this, and we should give them support, so much support as we can do.
I think this is a nice closing word. I got already hint from the organizers not to overgo with the time too much, but I think it was really a livid and interesting discussion. 15 questions came in, most of them answered. Thank you very much. A warm applause, big applause for Birgit Kelle.
Thank you.